Good afternoon and welcome to the plenary session at the end of the second day of Rio Pipeline 2021. This session will be on gas supply alternatives in Brazil and opportunities for the pipeline sector. As you know, Brazil gas sector is undergoing a very comprehensive reform, and we are transitioning from a sector that was once dominated by just one company to a more open market with a multiplicity of players throughout the gas value chain. So in this session, we want to discuss what opportunities and what challenges this gas sector reform will offer in terms of more diversification in gas supply sources and in gas suppliers. I will project a couple of slides to introduce the topic. As you can see from this map, Brazil has one large interconnected gas transportation system, which encompasses the southeast, the south, and part of the northeast and the midwest of Brazil. It connects many sources of domestic natural gas, but also gas from Bolivia and Argentina. There are nearly 10,000 kilometers of gas transportation pipelines. Domestic production is all over the eastern coast of Brazil, and Bolivian gas actually complements domestic gas production, entering from the west side of Brazil in 2 points. And Argentinian gas also enters in the south of Brazil. You can see here the gas processing plants and the gas transportation pipelines in yellow. And finally, domestic gas production and imported pipeline gas is complemented by imported LNG. There are 3 LNG regasification terminals that are owned and operated by Petrobras. One of them in Salvador de Bahia is actually being leased to a private players, which is Accelerate. And there are 2 more terminals in Barra do Coqueio, Sergipe, in Porto de Açu, Rio de Janeiro, where the terminals are not yet connected to the transportation sector. And several other projects of regasification terminal are either in the construction or planning phase. So as can be seen, we have a very varied prospect for gas supply. In the previous sections, yesterday and today, we've been hearing a lot about the prospects for natural gas supply from the pre-salt and other domestic sources. So this session will concentrate it on imported natural gas from Bolivia or Argentina and from imported LNG. And to discuss the topic of the session today, we've invited 3 very qualified panelists. Let's start with the ladies. Gabriela Aguilar has been Vice President for South America and also Country Manager for Argentina at Accelerate Energy since 2012. She's graduated in Business Administration and Foreign Trade. Her responsibilities at Accelerate Energy include the executive management of Accelerate's Argentina and Brazil business units, the development of new projects in South America. And as everybody knows, Accelerate Energy has recently won the, been able to rent the terminal from Petrobras in Bahia, the regasification terminal. So I'm sure Gabriela will have a lot to tell us. And going forward, Mr. Carlos Rabusfetti is an industrial engineer, graduated from the Technological Institute of Buenos Aires. Since 1987, he's been in a Techint group, occupying various positions, and he's currently Senior Manager for Natural Gas Business Development at Tecpetrol. And the third panelist will be Mr. Jorge Roberto Abraham Ijar, which he is a civil engineer, has a doctorate in civil engineering from COPE, an executive MBA from also COPEAD Institute, and has done several specialization courses at Harvard, INSEAD, University of Michigan. He's a career employee at Petrobras. He has held several key positions related to natural gas, gas management, gas distribution, gas market development, gas technology, and gas prices. He was board member of many gas distribution companies and is currently the commercial director of TBG. So to start with our first presentation today, what I would like to ask Carlos is about Vaca Muerta. We are told that there are a lot of gas reserves in Vaca Muerta. What's the status of the development of these reserves? And will there be any gas from Vaca Muerta reaching Brazil anytime soon? The floor is yours, Carlos.
Okay, thanks, Sylvie, and thanks everybody, and also to Rio Pipeline for the invitation. I would like to very briefly tell you or give you an update of Vaca Muerta production. And you know, we always know that the reserves are very abundant in Vaca Muerta, but now we can say that also it's a very resilient production, because after the pandemic, the production has come back really very strongly, and not only we have overpassed the previous level of production, but also the productivity and efficiency, we can say that now is comparable to the best gas areas in the USA. And so we can also say that, and this is very important due to Argentinian past, that the unconventional gas production right now is more than 50% of total Argentinian production. And this is very important because you know that we have a declination rate that is 50% a year in the unconventional gas. So what happens if the government decided to intervene the price? Well, if activity is stopped, production, drilling activities stop, then the production will go down 25% in only 1 year. So this is a very important news, because right now we can say that the price that we are obtaining in the latest bidding process is a very long-term and sustainable price that could also avoid government interventions. And the price is around $3.5 million BTU, that right now is also very competitive, world-class price. So then we are very optimistic about the development, the present development of Vaca Muerta and the potential that we have for the future. So let's go to the second issue that is also very important, that is the transportation. You know that after this ramp up of production, we have also saturated the transportation from Neuquén area, from Vaca Muerta area to the rest of the country. And on the other hand, we have a huge increase in alternative fuels as imported LNG, gasoil, fuel oil. And so right now we can see that the local price of $3.5 million BTU really generates huge savings from the government, who is in charge of importing these fuels. So right now the government is planning to expand as a public work the system, and you can see in the map the expansion that is to connect Vaca Muerta to TGS system, that is the South Transportation System in Argentina. This is a first step, and also expand TGS and a new pipeline that will connect in the north the TGS to TGN system. This is a planned expansion for 22 additional million cubic meters a day. And this will be in operation by the second semester of 2023. Also, the expansion will continue to the north in order to connect this point in TGS to the north part of TGN system in Tío Pugio or San Jerónimo. And this second step will be finished by winter 2024 and will add 10 million cubic meters a day to have a total of 32 million cubic meters a day. This is around $2,000 million expansion. The government will finance this with already budget money, with some additional funds coming from other sources, and with some finance from also three parties. So we are very optimistic that this expansion will not only solve the local supply, but will also bring a platform to export gas to our neighbors. So then let's analyze very quickly how we can export gas to our neighbors. Basically, here we are speaking about Brazil. So we are envisioning a first step that is using the existing infrastructure. We are not viewing here new investments, neither in Argentina, neither in Brazil, for exports. So we are trying to be very pragmatic here. So first, we are considering that the exports will be out of the winter, so out of the peak season of Argentina. So price of gas is reduced during out of the peak season, and we can speak about a competitive price of $3 million BTU, and of course, as it is an out of the peak, we are not speaking here about the firm transportation, so you don't have to reserve any transportation. And we are considering that the markets will be the south of Brazil, mostly now we are speaking only about the central terminal of Uruguayana, that is around almost 3 million cubic meters a day. And also we are viewing the area of Mato Grosso. Here we have the Cuiabá power plant, around 2.2 million cubic meters a day, and all this area that has industries. You have an urea plant, the Tres Lagoas, and some interesting market to develop. How we are viewing this very flexible exportation is we've coordinated with Bolivia, because Bolivia can complement this summer exports with some winter supply from Bolivia. And also we can complement this with LNG from Argentina. So if any client of this area wants also some import from during the winter, then we can have this with Bolivia or with LNG. Here we are trying to maximize the use of Bolivia pipelines, GTB pipelines, and TBG pipelines, and also the existing pipeline that goes to Central Terminal Uruguayana, that is TGM pipeline in Argentina. So here we think that Bolivia will maintain, doing that, Bolivia can maintain the Brazil market. And of course, in order to implement this, we need to integrate not only Brazil and Argentina, but also Bolivia in order to facilitate these operations. So then let's go to the second phase of the first step, that is to export electricity. And here we are considering that the gas will be used in Argentina to generate electricity. We have a lot of capacity, power plants that is idle, and of course out of the winter again, and we can generate with a very low price of gas of around $3 million BTU. We have huge facilities that interconnect Argentina and Brazil. We have the Garabí Conversora that is around 2,100 megavatios. This is around 10 million cubic meters a day of gas equivalent. And we have all the electrical lines that connect Argentina and Brazil, not only to the south of Brazil, but also to the southeast of Brazil. So here we can have the existing export as we have right now, but with this new transportation expansion, we can of course increase this to 10 million equivalent cubic meters a day. But also we can try to develop with Brazil a kind of integration that Argentina will deliver Brazil electricity during the summer, and Brazil can return this electricity to Argentina back during the winter. We consider a benefit from both parties, and this should be studied not only with the companies, but also with the governments and regulatory agencies. Then I have the last slide of my presentation, that is how we view a second step, that this is maybe a medium term or long term, that is considering new infrastructure. When we are saying new infrastructure, we are saying that is new pipelines, in Argentina for firm gas exports through Bolivia to Brazil, or in Brazil as the Uruguayana-Porto Alegre pipeline to supply gas to Porto Alegre, and then to invest in the TVG South Leg in order to reverse the flow and also supply the Curitiba and Paraná and Santa Catarina area. This will take a longer time. We think that we need to consolidate the first step before going to the south, to the second step. Then we have also the possibility to add new power plants in the border of the countries, like a second Uruguayana plant or a second Cuiabá plant, or any new additional plant in Rio Grande do Sul as Porto Alegre. And the third possibility is to upgrade it, to add a new conversora and add new transmission lines in order to increase also the possibility to export electricity to Brazil. So these are mainly the huge, very brief description of what we are planning to do and what is possible to do. And so I am open to questions after this presentation and also to listen to the other panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. I will now ask Gabriela to take the floor. Gabriela, Accelerate Energy has recently won the tender for the leasing the Bahia regasification terminal for the next 2 years, and will deploy one of its FSRU. Effective, this is a very important step in the opening of the Brazilian gas sector, because Accelerate will be the first agent to be able to inject LNG, regasified LNG, into the interconnected gas system. Gabriela, can you tell us a little bit more about the status of this project and how do you see LNG, the role of LNG in the Brazilian gas sector in the next few years?
Very good morning, Sylvie. Thank you very much for the invitation. And yes, allow me to show the presentation, and we are thrilled about this project, about being awarded in the Bahia terminal lease tender. And the project will start shortly. Let me share the presentation. Okay, this is a company who we are. Accelerate is the leader in floating solutions, LNG floating solutions with global operations, and accounts with the largest fleet of 10 FSRUs and 1 carrier. And we developed and operate 13 terminals of regasification in the world. But we are all talking about natural gas and LNG. The LNG is clean, abundant, and competitive. And one of the things that we've been seeing in the last 10 years is that the continuous expansion of liquefaction capacity has contributed to low prices until the recovery of the demand. We can discuss later what is happening in nowadays, which is we see the prices of LNG extremely high because of the Asia demand, but that is a specific situation about the seasonal demand. But what is the trend in the world about the use of hydrocarbons and natural gas and LNG? We've seen in the papers that there are news about the use of hydrocarbons or the LNG or cleaner energy all the time. Every day we see news about it. For instance, that Britain will ban gasoline cars in 2030, that the first offshore LNG articulated tug and barges in US are ready for operations. Bunker LNG is under expansion. So we'll see that the LNG was appointed as the energy for the transition towards cleaner sources of energy. But what's the trend in terms of, or what is the attraction, or what is the incentive about using LNG? It's First of all is the contribution to sustainability. LNG, natural gas, is clean energy compared to fuels like liquid fuels, fuel oil, diesel oil, that are used for power electricity, power generation, are 30% less contaminant than the liquid fuels. Also, its contribution to the energy security, particularly in countries like in the region Brazil or Argentina, that though different, both require, Brazil and Argentina requires additional sources of energy to cover the peaks of demand, either because of the winter seasonality or because of the conditions of hydrolicity. And also the contribution in terms of cost reduction. If we compare liquid fuel with LNG, in general, the trend, not the current situation, but in general, there is a almost $10 difference per million BTU compared between liquid fuels and LNG. So what's the contribution in the region? What's the presence of LNG in the region? There are more than 8 LNG terminals, regasification terminals, with an aggregated capacity of 100 million cubic meters per day. We have in Argentina, we have Bahia Blanca. Silvia mentioned all these LNG regasification terminals. We have in Brazil, Guanabara, Bahia, Pecém, Azul, Barra de Coqueiros, and in Chile, we have 2 regasification terminals, Quintero and Mejillones. Overlooking, seeing the contribution of LNG in Brazil, we can see that that chart, how the LNG has been growing since 2008, when where was the first LNG terminal in Brazil and in Bahia de Guanabara. So we started with 7 million cubic meters a day, and then increased until today 100 million cubic meters a day, but with a projection to be increased in more than 25 or 30 million cubic meters per day, considering all the new projects that are under evaluation. But what is the contribution to the balance, to the energy balance? In Brazil, historically, the LNG terminals have played a fundamental role to give flexibility in the source of supply, given the high participation of hydrolicity, hydropower in the energy matrix. So the hydraulic and seasonality conditions require flexible supplies of natural gas. And that is the LNG, the only one who can provide specific, increasing, flexible supplies, just like what's happening today. Brazil is facing the worst energy crisis and the worst draft condition in the last 90 years. So, or for instance, in Argentina, that required in 2021 the service of a regasification terminal just for only 3 months. So that is what actually the LNG and LNG floating regasification terminals grant to the markets. And there is another element that it's not minor, is that the supply of natural gas in Brazil is linked to production associated to the production of oil, and also importations of Bolivia, which now is facing some gas restrictions, and given their production profiles and gas reserves. So looking ahead, LNG will help Brazil to give more equilibrium to the energy system and to adapt itself to the variations in the natural gas demand. So what could provide the LNG to Brazil versus the pipelines? It's an ongoing discussion, even not just in the region, but in the world, about the contribution of flexible solutions at the LNG and flexible services of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, versus the construction of fixed infrastructure like the pipelines. But is I mean, one or the other. Considering the region, it's both. And why is that? Because the region already accounts with a lot of pipelines already constructed that connects all the countries in the region and will be extremely important to expand the use of LNG and to have a more integrated region. But what would provide LNG in Brazil, and why is actually there are a lot of LNG regasification terminals in evaluation? The reason is simple, it's flexibility. So the LNG would provide an energy matrix more equilibrated in terms of hydro, thermal and nuclear. Also provides alternative supplies of gas to the national production, Brazil national production, and Bolivia. It's a very complex moment to the development of non-conventional natural gas reserves, given the situation in the world to have and to account a source of energy more cleaner. And also what is important about the LNG is that could provide the opportunity to have partial loads and opportunities of re-export among the countries in the region. Also, one of the things that the region is failing is to have storages, energy storage, natural gas storages, closer to the market, to the demand. So LNG provides storage, additional storage for the peak services, for the peak demand, and also will complement the region in the counter-seasonally supply. And also we can see an arbitrage of prices because the region and the needs of additional sources of supply goes against the counter-seasonality with the rest of the world, of the demand in Asia and Europe. So what do we have in the region? Excelerate has been operating 4 terminals. The first one in Argentina is the LNG Escobar since 2011, that has a record of regasification and interrupted of almost 23 million cubic meters per day, and it's very important in Argentina to give service to Buenos Aires and Greater Buenos Aires in the winter season. The other terminal is Bahía Blanca. That's an excellent example for flexible service. This year we were awarded with the international tender to provide a service for 3 months only, and contributed to the market in 17 million cubic meters per day during the winter. Then we are operating the Bahía de Guanabara LNG terminal. We started providing services in 2012, and what's interesting is that in 2021, our ship, the experience, is contributing to the Brazilian market with 30 million cubic meters a day of regasification level. This is a record in the world, and it's particularly fundamental to Brazil in moments where it's needed additional volumes of natural gas to cope with the energy crisis. And well, we have the LNG terminal, which Sylvie commented before, that was awarded on September with an international tender to lease the terminal for until December 31st, 2023. And the terminal accounts with a regasification capacity to capture a volume of 20 million cubic meters per day. So this is extremely important for Brazil. We are aiming to start fairly soon the service that will be adding more energy and gas to Brazil shortly.
Thank you very much, Gabriela, for your presentation. I would like now to invite Jorge Ijar, Commercial Director of TBG, to give us his view on how the transportation companies in Brazil are getting ready to connect all these different sources of supply with the market. Jorge, what are the opportunities and what are the challenges? Will the system require expansion? And if so, where and when? Can you tell us something about it, please?
Okay, Sylvie, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank IBP for inviting me to present the opportunities to be created by the midstream sector in the opening of the Brazilian natural gas sector. It was very good to be the last one to speak, because I think I can match what Mr. Abfetti said and also Mrs. Gabriela when we say that the pipeline sector in Brazil, the transmission companies are ready to meet and to the supply sources with the customer. Okay, thank you, Sylvie. First of all, I'd like to thank IBP for inviting me to present the opportunities to be created by the midstream sector in the opening of the Brazilian natural gas section. This presentation is purely didactic and aims to exchange information to better understand the evolution of the natural gas market in Brazil. We emphasize that gas transmission is a regulated activity, and any new product and capacity offering are subject to regulation approval. Okay. The questions to be answered are: how can midstream promote opportunities to players? And how can some associated challenges be overcome? Among many others, a feature of natural gas transmission system is connecting different sources of supply to consumers, allowing real competition to take place. This means different suppliers can have access to consumers, which is good for both of them. Suppliers with market access and consumers with different suppliers. Another point to be considered is the security of supply, which is not present in isolated systems, the so-called island project. Such island projects have the limitation of providing only one dedicated source of supply, and in many cases, with no other alternative. In other words, the integrated system, transmission system provides flexibility in commercial and physical sense. Let's start by considering TBG's current situation. TBG is a company with more than 20 years, always focused on the ESG aspects, represented by our certification and our outstanding result in safety. Our pipeline, called Gasbol, passed through 5 states that contribute to approximately 50% of Brazil's GDP. In this map, it's possible to observe that TBG's transmission system has 4 entry points, 3 already in operation, Corumbá, Paulínia, and Guararema, and another one under construction in Garuva, in the state of Santa Catarina. In the future, should TSB project become a reality, Canoas can easily be another entry point. Okay, today Corumbá receives natural gas from Bolivian production sites at a rate of 20 million cubic meters per day. Of course, there is a point of attention here with regard to the forecast drop in Bolivian production. But as shown by Mr. Rabufet, there are some studies in progress to assess the possibility of receiving in the future natural gas from Argentina, first as a result of a swap process, and finally, if the decrease in Bolivian production turns out to be really accentuated, the gas may come from Vaca Muerta. It's fair to say that some efforts have to be made by Argentine companies or even by the government in terms of investment in pipeline infrastructure. Our interconnection with NTS, the other transmission systems in the southeast of Brazil, which is in Paulínia, is able to receive natural gas from offshore post and pre-salt production, and also from LNG regas terminal in Rio de Janeiro, and even more through a long path from the northeast of Brazil. With the expected drop in Bolivian production and the expected increase in pre-salt production, some investment may be needed in the NTS pipeline system to meet the demand of TBG's customer, the pre-salt corridor, that's how we are calling it now. As I'll talk about later, the transmission companies are ready for that. Okay. The ongoing construction of a regas terminal in Santa Catarina is scheduled to be completed in April next year, at the same time of a pipeline connecting the terminal with Gasbol and the entry point of Gasbol in Garuva. We are just building it. It will be a new and important source of natural gas for Brazil, providing competition to the southern market of the country and in the medium term to the entire country. And at last, when we speak about Canoas as an entry point for natural gas from Argentina, we have to take into account the large investment to be made by TSB, Transportadora Sul Brasileira, to connect this point to Uruguaiana in the west zone of the state of Rio Grande do Sul, and also the investment to be made on the Argentinian side, as Mr. Habufet has already shown. We also know that studies have been reconsidered by some investors to build one regas terminal in the city of Rio Grande and connect it to Casbal in Canoas. That's an old project that has been reconsidered by some new investors. That's what we could see by some news on the paper. Okay. Considering the current stage of the natural gas market in Brazil and the expectation of future increase in demand, some restrictions should be eliminated by the transmission company. I'll start by talking about the most urgent one regarding Gasbol, the need for new transmission capacity in the south region, I mean Santa Catarina and Rio Grande do Sul states. This project is composed by 7 compression states with a basic case of 4 million cubic meters a day capacity. And the first gas is scheduled to be in place in 2026. In order to overcome this situation, I mean, the need for more capacity to the south is something very old in Brazil. It has been discussed since at least 2015. TBG has already developed a whole project that will add up to 4 million cubic meters of capacity a day, as I said. The implementation of the solution through an incremental public call is being analyzed by regulatory agents, ANP, and it is scheduled to enter into public consultation at the beginning of next year. Players will have the opportunity to reserve future incremental capacity and sign transmission entry and/or exit contracts. Enlarging our vision by looking at the national pipeline system, the other transmission companies face similar punctual and specific situations that are being tackled in the same way, with a relevant sense of urgency. However, to understand the opportunities in the Brazilian market, it's necessary to consider the actual integration of transmission companies to solve efficiently not only the present, but also the future restrictions that may occur. We are working together with the support of our association, ATGAS, to develop a strategic approach to consider complementary projects to progressively adjust pipeline infrastructure to possible changes in natural gas flow across the integrated network due to changes in source of supply volume. This may be caused by many factors: dropping production from some fields, lack of global LNG supply, prices, arbitrage, etc. Furthermore, the benefits and opportunities generated by transmission sector are to be widely enjoyed and paid for by a large number of players, producers, local distribution companies, free customers, which will result in affordable and sustainable price. At this point, I hope it's clear that isolated systems are not able of delivering many of the benefits found only in a fully integrated and well-coordinated pipeline system. Okay, in summary, the opportunities are only integrated pipeline system can offer competition in an open natural gas market, leading to the possibility of price reduction. Only integrated pipeline system can provide security of supply due to different sources of supply. Transmission companies are ready to make investment to reduce any restriction in pipeline system, considering present and future needs. Transmission companies are working hard to integrate pipeline system in Brazil and make investments that lead to more efficient solutions to consolidate the opening of the natural gas market. The benefits will be enjoyed by a large number of players, not a few. And a final note, in the next 3 months, TBG, TAG, NTS, and TSB will make public calls to offer available transmission capacity to the market. In the case of TBG, which already offers the possibility of short-term contracts, it will be the 3rd annual public call. As you may know, we have been making public calls since 2019. And for TAG, NETS, and TSB, will be the first one. We are grateful for the cooperation of Petrobras, ANP, and AT Gas. It's really a remarkable milestone. And here I would like to point out that these short-term contracts that TBG has already offered to the market are very suitable to be used for, and I would say, LNG supply. Okay, to give flexibility. We have daily contracts and quarter contracts and so on. So it will be very good to meet the requirements of the flexibility of supply and also the seasonal demand. Okay. For sure, the opportunities are there to be seized and the challenge, as shown before, to be overcome. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Carlos, Gabriela, and Jorge, for the very interesting and informative presentations. We will now open the floor to questions. And because of the limited time we have, I will group them in two groups of questions. And I will pose the question and let you answer in turn. The one that feels better positioned to answer can start. So the first group is about regional integration. Do you see a renewed drive for regional integration? And are there the right conditions for new investment in cross-border pipelines? Who wants to answer that? Gabriela?
Well, I would like to go ahead with this. I think that we have been speaking about integrations for the last, I don't know, 25 years. And you know, Sylvie, we participate in all these debates. I think that we have to go to pragmatic approach. And now we have some realities. Realities like LNG has a huge presence in the region. Vaca Muerta gas really has also a huge potential. And I think that now we can create flexible solutions for new kind of supplies from different sources. And also we have a huge transportation grid that is already there. And then we have a lot of opportunities. And I think that with the consolidation of these opportunities, integration will come, and integration is required because you have a lot of regulation and legal aspects that have to be solved among the countries. But I think that integration will be a consequence of the reality of this new gas approach that we can have.
Sylvie, I agree with Carlos 100%. I was remembering in the late 90s that idea of the regional integration, and the gas flow estimated was around 150 million cubic meters per day, having Argentina and Bolivia as the initial hubs, and thinking about the potential of Brazil discoveries and production. I think that there is a new opportunity, differently than before, taking the opportunity of the gas pipelines and integration within the region, but also with the flexibility of LNG. This is not a war between the pipelines and LNG. I think that the contribution of both, depending on the situation, depending on the need, that is where we need to pursue, as Carlos said, to take practical measures, where the countries in the region, including Chile, Uruguay, who are needing additional sources of gas, these are these opportunities that we need to expand.
And of course, I would like to say that I agree with both of you. And TPG has been speaking to many producers in Argentina, talking to the Bolivian people, talking to LNG people in Santa Catarina, of course. And we believe in the integration, the market integration, but real, how to say, supported by a reasonable and rational approach, commercial approach, prices approach, and things like that. We're struggling for a long time in order to get it in our pipeline. We have a very good market. We have the south of Brazil, São Paulo, and so on. And we believe in the whole integration, not only pipeline integration, but also LNG supply. I really agree with that.
Thank you very much. You mentioned, Jorge, the possibility of the Uruguaiana-Porto Alegre pipeline to be completed. And Carlos mentioned that Argentinian gas could be transported via the Bolivian system also, if and when the Bolivian resources start to go down, that could be a possibility. But how do you see the competitiveness of Argentinian gas or different sources of imported gas with Brazilian gas, in particular with pre-salt? And will the Argentine gas transported via Bolivia be competitive with LNG and pre-salt?
Sylvie, a very good question. Thank you very much. It's exactly what the Brazilian market needs. Competition, okay? So we are studying both cases. Of course, we expect to have a very good amount of gas in 2026, 27 from the pre-salt. But we have to consider many other alternatives. Though we have to really realize how the producers will deal with reinjection, how they will increase their production of oil using reinjection, what would be the really amount of gas available to the market. So we are considering any possibility in order to have the best solution to Brazil in a competitive way.
And Sylvie, to complement what Jorge is saying, I think that our markets that are more suitable for Argentina, as I mentioned before, the Central Thermic Uruguayana is not connected right now to the Brazilian grid. The Mato Grosso area is far away from the pre-salt gas. And of course, we have to work with Bolivia also to complement Bolivia's supply with Argentina. Bolivia needs a bridge for their new exploration, because everybody knows that the production is declining since the last, 5 or 4 years. So I think that each product is suitable in each different area. There is a competition, but also there is a complementation of sources here, okay?
What I would add here is that, as you're saying, Carlos, how to complement each other, the pipelines and the LNG. And we have a very good example. Argentina, through IASA, purchased has just 2 days ago awarded a tender purchasing 2 cargos to sell power to Brazil. So that is another twist in the regional integration, right? Because we can make use of the pipelines by using LNG as well. It's not one or the other, but we can make use of the infrastructure already built and the connectivity between the countries, and arbitration of markets and in terms of volumes and pricing. So I think that the countries could make use of that and to adapt to the specific needs of each country.
Yes, and also, Sylvie, you know that Argentina has a very huge winter season. Brazil also has a very huge water reservoirs in the southeast subsystem that, you know, that this has changed in the last 10 or 15 years. Now the water storage is not fully, it's not complete during the winter or during the, I would say, the rainy season, let's say in February or March. So you can do many operations here. You can storage water in the southeast system and use gas reduce cost of gas from Argentina or from LNG, and then you can storage water to use later on if you require, if you are envisioning that the reservoir will be low. So you have many flexibility operations, and for that you will need the integration, of course, of the countries, because you have to facilitate these operations, okay, from the legal and regulatory aspect.
Yes, I completely agree. There is one last question that maybe we can answer quickly, is that how do you see regional gas integration versus regional power integration? Are there complementarities or they are competing with each other? I think you partially answered that, but if you want to complete with some other consideration for the closing, it would be good.
Well, in Brazil and Argentina has a very good interconnection. Also, Uruguay and Brazil has a very good interconnection from the electricity point of view. So I think that we have to take advantage of this and exploit even more than we are doing right now with long-term agreements that will also give security and safety to the electrical and systems for all these countries. This is something that in the past it has worked isolated systems, and now this is changing. I think we have to increase also this. Not only that's why I spoke not only about gas but also about electricity integration. Okay.
And I think they are complementary. It's good to have the power generation close to the market, so the gas would be very usable for that. But on the other hand, if you have any problem with the system, like Mr. Habufet said, you know, to storage water and things like that, maybe we have some, how would I say, integration in terms of electricity, which has already been done, okay? Today, we're having this integration in operation. So I think they are complementary.
What I would like to say is that this regional integration is actually working quite well compared to the gas integration. We have a lot of expectations about the natural gas integration, regional integration, that was not as successful as we were expecting to, but I am confident in the future based on what is happening today and thinking a little bit out of the box and seeing the opportunities to connect and integrate the power and the natural gas and LNG. So I think I'm confident that there is a higher usage of these complementary benefits.
Well, I think we need to close this plenary session. It has been a very interesting discussion. I would like to thank Carlos Rabufetti, Gabriela Aguilar, and Jorge Ija for participating today and for giving us their insights. I come out with a hopeful and optimistic vision of the future of the regional gas sector. And I agree that there will be opportunities for both pipeline gas and LNG in our regional system, not only in Brazil, but also in the other countries of the region. So many thanks to you, and many thanks to all that are listening to us today. And see you in the near future to discuss more on regional gas issues. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.